Video game collectors are wasting their time. Now, granted, I don't really hear this much in my comment section because if you're watching this, you're into video games in some way or another. Maybe you're here to hate on what I do, or maybe you're here just to follow along, and you can't quite understand why you're watching this video, so let's get on with it. I've had a fair few people tell me over the years that collecting video games and even playing video games is a waste of time. Now, I've never had a massive collection over the years. I have bought and sold a lot of my video games. These days, of course, I am building that, and you can check out that series in the link below. But I have had family members tell me that collecting video games is just pointless and why am I doing it? There are hundreds of reasons why people do certain things, and video game collecting is absolutely no exception. I could sit here and rattle off about 50 things off the top of my head, and that's without even really thinking about it. Now, YouTube content creation aside, the biggest thing I get out of video game collecting is going to be split into two halves. So I have the retro side of my collection, and then I have the more modern side. Now, what you consider to be retro and what I consider to be retro are more than likely going to be very different. I would say PlayStation 2 and beyond, or further back if you will, is what I would consider to be retro. It's not really, because it is only, what, 20 odd years ago, but at the same time, that is still 20 years ago. So when I look at my Mega Drive collection, for example, I'm looking at it from nostalgia point of view. I am likely to play a lot of the games that I pick up, and some of the games I've never played, so that I have no nostalgia whatsoever, but they are games I'd like to try. And there are plenty of people in the comment section who have said to me before, looking at these games through nostalgia glasses is always the best way, don't play them, because they are actually terrible games when you stack them up to modern titles. And of course, if you are trying to compare a Power Rangers game on the Mega Drive to potentially a Power Rangers game on the PlayStation 4 or 5, yes, the Mega Drive game probably won't win. It is going to look bad. The gameplay's not going to be there. There are only 3 buttons to use. But I don't ever really try and compare these games. I look at a Mega Drive game from a much different angle. The time period it was made in, and how impressive it is that this thing still exists and is now on my shelf. So what I get out of collecting with regard to the Mega Drive era and the PlayStation 2 era and some of the PlayStation 1 and even like Saturn, I look at it through nostalgia. And even though I do collect games I've never played before, and I can't really say, oh, I have nostalgic feelings for those, I do still kind of, because it's from that time period, but I do still intend to play those games. So it is a nostalgia feeling, but it's also a sense of, well, I will play them and I do like the look of it. So that's kind of twofold on the retro side. When it comes to the newer stuff, there isn't really a nostalgic feeling for anything on the PlayStation 4 and beyond. But when it comes to like the Xbox 360, it's not retro, but I do have nostalgic feelings, and that is one of, if not my favourite console of all time. And it goes beyond the games that were released on the platform as well. Obviously that does help, and other things to go with it, like the fact that I worked in a video game store when this console was out, so I was surrounded by the games constantly. I had fond memories of trying to get hold of a console in the first place, because these things were like gold dust. And even saving up for this console, I remember having to do certain jobs and sell certain things in order to get the money to buy it in the first place. And we've seen graphic jumps in consoles before, but nothing on this scale, and to be fair, I don't think we ever will. From PlayStation 2 to Xbox 360 is mind-blowing. But even with all that, there is still another reason why I hold the Xbox 360 just a little bit above every other console. And for that, we have to go to a pub in 2005. Now, obviously I don't have footage of this. It would be amazing if I just recorded everything back then to look back on. But we used to go, me and some friends from school, once a week to a pub quiz. I'd left school at this point, sixth form had just finished, I think it was about August 2005. And while we were waiting for the quiz to start, a conversation popped up about what we were going to do after the pub quiz had finished. One of them wanted to go on to another place, someone else wanted to go bowling, I think. But because I was saving for this and I was really focused on it, I didn't want to spend any money. So I said, well, I'm just going to go home because I can't afford to do anything. The question came up, why can't you afford it? What's going on? And then I said, well, I'm saving up for an Xbox and I need the money. These things are expensive. And none of them really said anything. They were all like, okay, fair enough. And then one of them said, what, you're 18 years old and you're buying a video game console? And he refused to even hear me out, almost. You know, he just couldn't get his head around how an 18-year-old would still want to play video games. Sat there for about 5 or 10 minutes belittling my opinion and what I wanted to do with my money. That has always stuck with me, because it's taught me to not really listen to what people think. Take opinions on board all you want, and that's absolutely fine. But if you want to do something and it's not harming anyone else, and there are 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 people telling you not to do it for whatever reason, who cares? So for that reason, the Xbox 360 does have a a special place in my console list. It's probably the biggest reason I collect, you know, the feeling of nostalgia and the fact that I want to play these games in the first place. And then there is that one specific reason a lot of sealed collectors, for example, will collect that no one really talks about in these type of videos. And that is the value of these items. No one can accurately predict the future. I don't care if your name is Mystic Meg. So when it comes to the value of these video games, if I showed you one right now, and I said to you, what do you think the value of this is going to do in the next 10, 20, 30 years? I would imagine 99% of people would say, well, it's likely to rise, and I would agree. Especially for things like the Mega Drive, which are already decades old at this point anyway. The further into the future that we get, the less of these things are going to exist. Yes, I would say that more people are collecting these days than ever before, so a lot of them will be preserved, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that these things will probably rise in price. And that is 100% a reason why I collect. When you look around this room, and even when you watch my series, I do have a running total of how much this collection is roughly worth. Now I say roughly because prices change all the time, and I do base my prices on CEX prices, which are a little inflated. So even though my collection value is well over 4,000, there is a very good chance it's actually under that, but there is also a good chance that it's above that. But if the pandemic taught me anything, it's that you never know when something is going to strike. Something may happen, you may lose your job, something is going to restrict you from earning an income, or an unexpected bill is going to hit that mat at any point that you haven't prepared for, you don't have savings for example, and you need money in order to cover it. So having a room full of video games that I'm able to just list up on eBay or take to a store and sell in bulk is always nice. Now of course, if I just put the money in the bank, it would be there without having to sell it and take fees out of it, etc. But having everything rolled into one, something that I can play and pass the time, a hobby, going out and collecting them and of course then playing them, being able to look at the shelves and having that nostalgic feeling every now and then also having that little backup of finances should I need them. Many people will tell you that you shouldn't treat a video game collection as savings, because of course the video game collection that you have now that's worth, let's just say £4,000, in 6 months or 12 months time it may only be worth 3,000, so it will go down in value, but there of course is a very good chance that it could go up in value. Who knows what's going to happen? We've already established this, but that's the same for stocks and shares, Bitcoin and whatever it may be. So there are many reasons why I collect, and I'm sure a lot of the reasons why I collect are why you collect as well. The finance side of things is something that I don't really see many other people mention in this space. How much they spend on video games is obviously something people mention, and the bargains that people pick up, and maybe the odd how much is your collection worth kind of thing, but no one would ever say, well, I collect video games because I know my money is safe, or I collect video games because I'm hoping the price is going to go up in the future and I'm going to sell off my entire collection and I'm going to use the money to go to Disney, for example. You never really see anyone say that, and I'm not saying that I'm going to sell my collection in the future to pay for something specific, but it's nice to know that I can do that should I need to. And the fact that I've managed to build this video game collection for nothing out of pocket in these modern times as well makes it that little bit more satisfying. If I sell any of this collection for any amount of money, it's all profit. So it's not really my savings because it's money that I wouldn't have had anyway, because we've managed to build it out of nothing, and that series, like I said, is linked down below. Why do you collect? Let me know in the comments. Does finances have anything to do with it? Are you building a video game collection so that you know your money is relatively safe in the future? Or do you disagree entirely and don't really look at the money side of things, but you just love that nostalgia that your collection gives you? If you want to check out another video from me from that series, you can click here, and until the next time, goodbye.